massacre in Las Vegas.
Shots fired from Mandalay Bay.
We have multiple victims shot.
A gunman in a high-rise hotel opens fire on a concert 32 floors below.
It was an act of pure evil.
The shots just kept coming.
You just see bodies dropping and people getting trampled.
Scores are killed in the deadliest shooting in modern U.S. history.
I saw strangers helping strangers and saving lives.
We need your truck. We just need to get people over to the hospital, okay?
In moments of tragedy and horror, America comes together as one.
This is the CBS Evening News. Reporting tonight from Las Vegas, here is Anthony Mason.
America is a nation in mourning tonight for victims of the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. Good evening. It happened late last night just behind me. That is the 43-story Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino. Las Vegas police say a heavily armed gunman broke windows on the 32nd floor and fired down on thousands of people attending an open-air concert. Many fled down this street that's right behind me here. There is still crime scene tape up. You can see bloody footprints on the sidewalk and the clothes they left behind as they literally ran for their lives. At least 59 people were killed, more than 500 injured, most of them by the gunfire. Police say the gunman, 64-year-old Stephen Paddock of Mesquite, Nevada, killed himself before they arrived. They have not determined a motive, but they say they have found no links to terrorism. We have extensive coverage tonight, beginning with John Blackstone.
Country music star Jason Aldean was on stage when the firing began. Shortly after 10 o'clock local time. But it took a full 20 seconds for people to realize this wasn't fireworks.
It's not a gun. I'm pretty sure it's a firecracker. There's no way that's a gun.
Then came chaos. The sound of automatic weapon fire mixed with pandemonium.
Got shots fired. There's many people down.
The shooter paused several times.
No! Babe, you're okay. I promise. We can't go yet.
Gail Davis held onto a police officer for dear life.
And then we thought, okay, it's over. And then it would start again.
Some people ran, others sought cover behind walls and gates. Still others froze in the open. This woman simply ducked.
Everyone was just like literally laying on top of each other, trying to get out of the way, and the shots just kept coming.
People desperately sought help for the wounded, any way they could.
We need your truck. We just need to get people over to the hospital, okay?
Okay, we can't worry about victims. We need to stop the shooter before we have more victims. Anybody have eyes on this shooter?
Meanwhile, police searched for the gunman.
We're taking gunfire. It's going right over our heads. There's debris coming over our heads. So we're pinned down here with a bunch of civilians. Be advised, we are taking fire from a very high floor. Every officer that comes up is going to be a target if they're driving on Las Vegas Boulevard because it's coming from the Mandalay Bay on the boulevard side.
The shooter, later identified by police as 64-year-old Stephen Paddock, was in fact firing from 4 football fields away, through 2 windows, 32 stories up. SWAT officers moved in.
Which one? Go ahead.
Didn't sit on the suspect's door. I need everybody in that hallway to be aware of it and get back. We need to pop this and see if we get any type of response from this guy to see if he's in here or if he's actually moved out somewhere else.
All units on the 32nd floor, SWAT has explosive breach. Everyone in the hallway needs to move back.
Breach.
Inside, where Paddock had been a guest since last Thursday, they found an arsenal, 16 guns. Clark County Sheriff Joseph Lombardo.
He had killed himself, and exactly we'll have to go through our body-worn camera and existing video whether we engaged him at the same approximate time or not.
Gail Davis said the terror seemed to last forever.
I've never been that scared in my life ever.
even when people managed to get out of the enclosed concert area over here and were running down these streets, they were still running in fear with the sound of gunfire echoing off the buildings all around them. Anthony?
John Blackstone, thanks, John. We are just beginning to learn the identities of the victims. Carter Evans is following that part of the story. Carter?
Anthony, you could just imagine what the triage must have been like. Ambulances arriving one after the other. In all, more than 500 patients were transferred to local hospitals, but not all of the critically wounded arrived in an ambulance.
In the chaos, confused concertgoers ran in any direction they could, over walls, on top of each other, and into hotel lobbies, just trying to get out of the line of fire.
What is it? Be advised, it is automatic fire. Fully automatic fire from an elevated position. Take cover.
Gail Davis was at the concert.
This girl had been standing right beside me, and she had fallen, and first she stood there and she grabbed her stomach. She looked at her hands are bloody, and she just kind of screamed and she just fell back.
Concertgoers who were not injured became first responders, moving victims in wheelbarrows, office chairs, and hotel luggage carts. Tom McIntosh was shot in the leg when a stranger stopped the bleeding and drove him to the emergency room in the back of a truck.
You're surrounded by thousands of people and you don't know who's shooting at you. It's pretty stressful.
More than 100 gunshot victims poured into University Medical Center, according to trauma surgeon Jay Coates.
These patients, with so many coming in so fast, we did what's called damage control, which is really just stopping the process of dying.
Move on to the next one.
Got the next one in, and we did that all night.
By morning, more than 50 people from the Route 91 concert were dead, like 29-year-old Sonny Melton from Tennessee, Rachel Parker from Manhattan Beach, California, and Charleston Hartfield, a Las Vegas cop who coached youth football. Hundreds more survived, and with hospitals running short on resources, they put out a plea for blood. Jeff Coe was one of many who stood in line to donate.
This is a small thing, right? But you look outside and there's all kinds of people that want to donate. They're going to get blood as much as they need.
This is University Medical Center. It's the only level 1 trauma center in the state. Last night, they took in 104 patients. Now, 4 of them died. 12 are still in critical condition. But Anthony, 40 have already been treated and released.
Carter, they're doing incredible work there. Thanks. Earlier, I spoke with brothers Corey and Craig Nyman, who were watching the concert just steps away from the band.
Did people realize what was happening?
No. It got to when we heard the first couple sounds, and there was a woman who went down. And we were like, we didn't know what was going on. She didn't know what was going on. And so she was there, and then we're like, wait a minute. And then a woman,
You look at her cowboy boot, and you could see that there was something that punctured the leather in the boot. And right as that was happening, everything happened so fast, you could hear those first rounds really go off.
How long did the shooting go on for?
At least 10, 15 minutes, but it was breaks. It was going.
And every time there was a break, crowds of people would move as he was trying to reload.
As this was happening, what did you see in the crowd?
I was just seeing people coming from all different angles, ducking for cover, really just trying to find safety.
And I just saw people on the ground. Yeah. I saw people just littered just everywhere, tears, and we heard glass breaking. It was just noise.
It was pandemonium.
Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much. We were waiting for the shots. They finally stopped. Like, we have to move. Made a decision to go out the back, and there was a gate that either got opened or trampled. There were cars. There were people. No one knew what to do. Yeah. There were people getting carried. There were people lifeless. There were people everywhere.
You guys must be in shock today.
Physically, we're thankful and very fortunate for everything. Mentally, as residents of the city, as fans, as attendees, yeah, it hurts. It is really like mental trauma on your body. You never want anything like this to happen.
Our CBS News Justice and Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Pegues has been working his law enforcement sources, and here's what he's found out about the gunman.
After Stephen Paddock checked into the Mandalay Bay Resort last Thursday, investigators say he spent the next 3 days gambling in the casino, and he stockpiled a cache of at least 16 weapons, a mixture of handguns and rifles, in a large suite. 2 of the guns were on tripods. Police and the FBI are now trying to determine a motive.
We're shocked, horrified, completely dumbfounded.
about this. Eric Paddock, the killer's brother, says he was interviewed by investigators for about 4 hours.
The fact that he had those kind of weapons is just... Where the hell did he get automatic weapons?
Nothing. Or anything?
Nothing. No religious affiliation, no political affiliation, no, he just hung out.
Stephen Paddock was an accountant, but family members say recently he was a professional gambler who'd won large jackpots. He was also a licensed hunter and pilot who had rented, owned, and sold multiple properties in 4 states over the last 4 decades. Paddock's father was once on the FBI's most wanted list. The 1969 notice described Benjamin Hoskins Paddock as a bank robber who was psychopathic and considered armed and very dangerous. Until last night's mass shooting, Stephen Paddock's only run-in with law enforcement was this 2009 parking ticket.
It was well planned out, and it took a lot of strategic thinking.
Former FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole says Paddock may have been planning the attack for years.
He had a view of the concert, and he probably had gone to other rooms and chose specifically this room. So there was surveillance that likely occurred before this event.
A search of Paddock's home turned up 18 additional weapons, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and explosives. Today, ISIS claimed responsibility for this attack, but investigators say so far they have found no link between Paddock and the terrorist organization. Anthony.
Jeff Pegues, thanks, Jeff. People who'd encountered Paddock recently are also having a tough time believing he could have committed mass murder. DeMarco Morgan has that.
As soon as I saw the name, it was an instant recognition.
Stephen Paddock purchased a shotgun from Utah gun shop owner Chris Michael back in February.
We have code words between us as staff. If something just doesn't feel right, if something doesn't look right, we will do everything we can to actually stop the sale. And none of the alarms went up from any of the staff that dealt with him.
Today, law enforcement searched Paddock's Mesquite, Nevada home. Mesquite police officer Quinn Averett.
We haven't had any run-ins with him. We haven't had any contact with him in the past.
He's a nice guy. I mean, he was kind of quirky, but a nice guy.
Paddock's neighbors described him as quiet, unsocial, and having an odd sense of humor, but not as violent.
It's just kind of unbelievable to think somebody who was, you know, in our community, a member of our community, could possibly go out and do something like that. It's just unbelievable.
Paddock was a licensed hunter and was known to frequent gun shops near his home here in Mesquite, Nevada. Anthony, he lived here with his girlfriend, Mary Lou Danley, who is out of the country. And at this time, law enforcement believe she was not involved.
DeMarco Morgan in Mesquite, thanks. Before the shooting had even stopped, people in the audience were rushing to help the wounded. Some giving aid were off-duty cops and firefighters. Others were ex-military. Adriana Diaz has their story.
We have an active shooter. We have an active shooter inside the warehouse.
Minutes after the shooting began, law enforcement scrambled to the scene.
We have multiple casualties, GSWs in the medical tent. Multiple casualties.
But there were already off-duty first responders in the crowd who'd been attending the concert for fun.
This was the first body, the first victim?
Like Robert Hayes with the LA Fire Department. He was there with his wife and friends.
What was it in you that made you stay, made you go from person to person to see how you could help?
Honestly, because if that was someone in my family, that's what I would have wanted somebody to do for me.
Oh my God! He described the scene as a war zone, with victims being helped by strangers.
Everybody was coming together to try to work. I mean, there was people sitting there that wouldn't leave people that were shot, and
strangers.
They didn't even know. Yeah.
We need your truck. We just need to get people over to the hospital, okay?
Okay, go ahead, put them all in the back. Okay. Some improvised to help victims, turning their personal vehicles into ambulances.
There was a gentleman that was shot, and he said, "Can you help me?" And so I put him in my car, and I had like 6 people in my car, people with out shoes, running just to get away. And
But in the midst of chaos, there was hope. Vanessa is a nurse from Orange County, California.
Everyone's just communicating and working together. You got this person, you got this person, you got this person. It was completely horrible, but it was absolutely amazing to see all the people come together.
Some of the first responders also became victims. Several officers and firemen who were both on and off duty were shot, and a Las Vegas police officer was killed.
Adriana Diaz, thank you, Adriana. And coming up next on the CBS Evening News, the president calls the attack pure evil, but does not label it terrorism. And later, a nurse on treating victim after victim. President Trump will be coming here to Las Vegas on Wednesday to meet with first responders and families of the victims. This morning, he went on television to comfort Americans shaken by yet another mass shooting. Then he led the nation in a moment of silence. Here's Major Garrett.
It was an act of pure evil.
President Trump spoke somberly of sadness, shock, and faith.
Scripture teaches us the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit.
The president also spoke of togetherness.
Our unity cannot be shattered by evil. Our bonds cannot be broken by violence. And though we feel such great anger at the senseless murder of our fellow citizens, it is our love that defines us today.
And the struggle to comprehend madness.
I know we are searching for some kind of meaning in the chaos, some kind of light in the darkness. The answers do not come easy.
Words did not come easily for Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders, overcome when describing acts of heroism that in some cases cost lives.
The memory of those who displayed the ultimate expression of love in the midst of an unimaginable act of hate will never fade.
The White House said this was no time to discuss gun control or any other possible policy response. It was instead a time for silence and White House mourning. In a 2015 interview after a mass shooting in Oregon, candidate Trump said gun laws have nothing to do with such crimes, that it's all about mental illness and people who, quote, slip through the cracks. There is no sign President Trump has changed his mind on the topic. Anthony?
Major Garrett at the White House. Thank you, Major. Next, a trauma nurse who helped treat dozens of victims. Ashley Justy is a trauma nurse who worked at Sunrise Hospital for 6 years, more than 6 years. She's currently at a private clinic, but when she heard about the shooting, she went back to Sunrise to help. I spoke with her today. What sort of injuries did you see?
All gunshot wounds.
Yeah.
Extremities, ankles, hands, chest, arm.
Yeah.
Some people with more severe were taken to the operating room right away because they were very, very critical.
What else did you see that I might have missed?
You know, just a lot of people frantic, asking for their family members, people asking for their spouses. Have you seen so-and-so? Have you seen so-and-so? But there's so many people there, no one has a name. Everyone come under an alias because there's just too many patients to get names down and stuff. So that was very hard, trying to calm patients when they were looking for their spouses or significant other. There's a young lady I tried to console. She was hyperventilating. She had gotten shot, or she said her husband had gotten shot. And she said he was shot in the face. And she was crying. They had just had a baby and stuff. So it was just bad. A lot of emotions going on.
Ashley Justy told us simply last night was hell. We'll be back from Las Vegas in a moment. We're back in Las Vegas across from the Mandalay Bay there, where, as you can just make out in the distance, up on the 32nd floor, a gunman opened fire last night, killing 59 people and wounding more than 500 others. It's been 68 weeks since what had been the deadliest shooting in modern U.S. history, the Pulse nightclub attack in Orlando that left 49 dead last year. Now, our hearts ache again for the neighbors we lost in Las Vegas. Flags in Washington and across the nation were lowered to half-staff today on orders from the president for a mourning period that will last until sunset this Friday. Foreign embassies lowered their flags as well, with leaders from the Pope to the Queen of England offering condolences. Some CBS stations will be leaving us now for their regular local programming, but for most of you, this special expanded edition of the CBS Evening News from Las Vegas will continue in a moment.
Coming from Mandalay Bay.
Hearing this loud sound, it sounded like a huge jackhammer. Just massive amounts of bursts of gun.
Felt like it just continued for 20 minutes straight.
And everybody's just running. You could see people getting shot.
We have multiple casualties. Gunshot wounds to the chest and head. I need immediate medical.
It was chaos. It was absolute chaos.
Oh my God.
We pray for the day when evil is banished and the innocent are safe from hatred and from fear.
This is the CBS Evening News. Reporting tonight from Las Vegas, here is Anthony Mason.
Good evening again, and for those of you just joining us, this is a special expanded edition. The death toll is now at least 59 in the worst mass shooting in modern U.S. history. More than 500 others were injured, most from the gunfire, others while attempting to get away. Police say the gunman, who had at least 16 weapons, opened fire late last night on thousands of people attending an open-air country music concert. He was shooting from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino. The gunman, 64-year-old Stephen Paddock of Mesquite, Nevada, took his life before police got to his hotel room. They are still searching for a motive. The bodies of all the victims have now been removed from the arena. This is how the attack unfolded.
All of a sudden, we just heard like 3 or 4 little pop, pop, pop. Everybody kind of looked around and said, oh, it's just firecrackers. My husband said, that's not firecrackers. That sounds like a semi-automatic rifle.
Shots fired, 4:15 ASF. Route 91, sounded like an automatic firearm.
So there's a shooting, What the
We were sitting ducks and you could hear the bullets coming closer and then it'd get quiet and they would like reload.
You just see bodies dropping and people getting trampled. And it's one of the craziest things. I saw people in front of me get hit with bullets.
The shots just kept coming, and when we got down, there was a man that was shot right there. They were trying to take him out. He was all bloody and he was unconscious.
And the girl that was standing right behind me, she got a shot in the stomach.
My husband and I ran out toward our car, and there were people hiding underneath my car for cover.
And every time there was a break, we ran, and we ran.
As the gunfire erupted, police raced toward the scene past the fleeing crowd. Don Dahler reports now on those chaotic moments.
Shots fired.
They came in short, tense bursts, messages from first responders struggling to make sense of the senseless.
We're seeing local flashes in the middle of Mandalay Bay on the north side, like one of the middle floors.
Be advised, it is automatic fire. Fully automatic fire from an elevated position. Take cover.
As police made their way towards the source of the gunfire, they encountered the injured and the dead.
We have multiple victims shot fired right at the medical tent.
But with hundreds of rounds slamming into buildings and humans, one officer's voice brought their main task into focus.
We can't worry about victims. We need to stop the shooter before we have more victims. Anybody have eyes on this shooter?
During those terrifying minutes, the radio calls are a narrative of confusion.
We're getting from civilians saying that there might have been 3 shooters.
And mayhem
Yeah, need some more units here. I'm being overtaken by citizens trying to take patrol cars.
Panic.
Please stay calm. Just relax. We're trying to get this set up.
And professionalism.
We believe it's the northernmost room on either side on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay.
I need to know if we have that floor evacuated other than our suspects. We got snipers going up.
We have the hallway contained.
It was a moment they trained for. And after an explosive breach,
all units on the 32nd floor, SWAT has explosive breach. Everyone in the hallway needs to move back. All units move back.
Breach, breach, breach.
the SWAT team burst into the room. The violence was over.
Receiver 20 saying there's one down inside the room.
One suspect down. No firearms.
Many officers ferried victims to the hospital in their police vehicles. One of the problems they had at the scene, though, according to the radio messages, was civilians going into the police cars and taking their department-issued shotguns. Anthony, presumably, to defend themselves.
Don Dahler, thank you, Don. The people killed here last night were simply enjoying a beautiful fall evening, just having fun listening to some of their favorite country artists. They were mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. Sonny Melton was a hero. The Tennessee nurse died protecting his wife from the bullets. She says she felt him get shot in the back. Charleston Hartfield was a Las Vegas police officer and military vet. A friend calls him one of the nicest guys ever. Rachel Parker worked for the police department in Manhattan Beach, California. She was a civilian employee on the department's front desk. Lisa Romero was a mother and grandmother who worked as a high school secretary in Gallup, New Mexico. A Southern California PTA says Susan Smith was a wonderful woman, an advocate for children, and a friend. Angie Gomez was a Riverside, California cheerleader. Her GoFundMe page has already surpassed its goal. They and the rest of the victims will be missed. Now let's go to Jeff Glor in New York.
Anthony, thank you. In a strange twist, the Las Vegas massacre has a connection to Orlando, Florida, scene of the mass murder last year at the Pulse nightclub. The Las Vegas shooter had family in Orlando. Manuel Bajorquez is there.
We're shocked, horrified, completely dumbfounded.
The shooter's brother, Eric Paddock, shed no light on a possible motive when he spoke with reporters outside his Orlando home.
No religious affiliation, no political affiliation, no, he just hung out.
And no history of mental illness?
Not a bit.
He said Stephen Paddock was an accountant who spent his retired life gambling, sometimes earning large jackpots. He helped his brother move to Nevada in 2015.
He had a couple of guns, but they were all handgun legal. I mean, he might have had one long gun, but he had them in a safe.
He says they had limited contact after the move.
It's hard to even begin to speculate, what this person was thinking.
John Mina is Orlando's police chief who led his department through the Pulse nightclub shooting, where 49 were killed last year.
To me, truly, this is either a very evil person or someone who is very mentally deranged and was set off by something.
What Mina saw this morning brought back vivid memories of Pulse.
The one that I immediately noticed this morning was officers asking citizens to use their truck to transport victims, and we did that here in Orlando. I think what has changed over the years is definitely the active shooter training. Officers are trained to go right to the sound of gunfire. You saw that in Orlando where officers went inside that nightclub. You saw that in Las Vegas where pictures of officers running towards the sound of gunfire and trying to eliminate the threat as quickly as possible.
Chief Mina's talks across the country about the lessons learned here in Orlando have included Las Vegas police. He encourages departments to buy Kevlar helmets and additional body armor that can help protect against the kind of high-powered weapons used in both attacks. Jeff?
Manny, thanks very much. Supporters of tighter gun control laws were quick to push for new laws. Hillary Clinton tweeted, "Our grief isn't enough. We can and must put politics aside, stand up to the NRA, and work together to try to stop this from happening again." Will Congress act? Here is Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes.
Until 13 years ago, the federal assault weapons ban would likely have outlawed some of the firearms and high-capacity magazines used by the Las Vegas gunman. But the ban lapsed in 2004. And attempts to reinstate it or pass other restrictions have failed.
The nation's counting on you.
Former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, shot in the head 6 years ago, happened to be on Capitol Hill today with her husband, astronaut Mark Kelly.
If Congress didn't do anything after Gabby was shot and didn't do anything after Orlando or Sandy Hook, what gives you any hope at this point that they'll do something now?
Well, right now they're going in the wrong direction. What it takes is for people that put these folks in office to demand action.
But when it comes to gun laws, the gulf here on Capitol Hill is as wide as ever, even between congressional gun victims. Republican Steve Scalise, whose hip was shattered by gunfire this summer, told Norah O'Donnell last week in an interview for 60 Minutes that his views on gun rights have not changed.
But you're now a victim of gun violence.
Yeah, but I'm also saved by well-trained people who had guns to shoot back, and whatever the weapon's going to be. I mean, if it's not a gun, it'll be a hand grenade, or it'll be a knife or an axe. I think what's important to focus on is that we have strong rights in this country, and we're protected by them.
The only gun legislation advancing in Congress right now is a GOP bill aimed at making it easier to buy gun silencers. Opponents say that will just make mass shooters more dangerous, but supporters argue that they're just trying to make it easier for legal gun owners to protect their own hearing.
Nancy Cordes, thank you very much from Capitol Hill. Fran Townsend was Homeland Security Advisor to President George W. Bush. She is now Senior National Security Analyst for CBS News, and Paul Violas is our law enforcement analyst. Welcome to both of you. Fran, let me start with you. What else have you heard this afternoon that is helpful in terms of determining where law enforcement go now?
Well, from what our first reports were this morning, he had in that room almost twice the number of rifles and guns that we expected. And there are some reports now that it may also have included some explosives. Look, what we guessed this morning is for sure now how well planned this was and how well armed it was. And again, look, he had enough armaments in there to have killed 2 or 3 times the number of people he killed. And as tragic as it was, law enforcement really, their swift action. And you heard the officer that was interviewed tonight say it's the training that made the difference for them.
He had weapons inside the hotel room, Paul. He also had weapons at his home in Mesquite, Nevada.
Right.
A lot of them.
Yeah, apparently so. There's no question about it. I was actually surprised, and we talked about this earlier, I was really surprised that he didn't set that house up in anticipation of police coming in there to harm police when they came there.
Booby trap it somehow.
Correct.
He either was using fully automatic weapons or somehow modifying semi-automatic weapons.
That's correct.
When you hear about the stockpile that he had both inside the hotel and at home, what as a law enforcement officer, what are you looking for now or next?
Where he got them. That's going to be the key is information that's going to come in from ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, as they trace the history of where those weapons came from, where they ever used before, where he bought them. I think it's going to be very telling right now is the fact, he's originally from Florida. And in Florida, you can go just about anywhere to gun shows. You know this, right, Fran? I mean, you can go anywhere and buy pretty much whatever you want. That's going to be key right now is where he got the weapons and how he got them to his house and how he got them to the hotel.
2 of the gun shop owners in the state of Nevada have identified themselves and said he bought more than 1 weapon from me. There was nothing unusual. He didn't have a criminal record, so there was no reason to suspect, that he was going to be responsible for this kind of an event.
Fran, how has the lone wolf threat evolved from the time that you served to now?
Well, 1, they're more prevalent, right? 2, we've found not only in this case where you see taking a traditional firearm to launch a lone wolf attack, but more often now we see people take everyday items, a knife, a car, and use that to launch something that's ubiquitous, right, and very difficult to stop somebody from getting their hands on. Now, look, in this country under the Second Amendment, people have access to guns that they don't in countries in Europe. But that now that allows them, the lethality is much greater.
Paul, so if you're looking now at mental health, you're looking at the stockpile of weapons. What else are you looking at?
Forensically, the fascinating part about this right now is looking back from when he was, because we know the connection to the father. And when you look at it from a behavioral side, the tie to genetics with the father and his criminal background, you know, on the FBI's most wanted list for 8 years. I mean, the tie with the father to him, I think is going to be one component. But the other part of this is really going to be interviewing neighbors and the information of what they knew that maybe they didn't realize those particular behaviors could lead to something like this. That's the thing I'm going to be looking for right now. What was apparent that people didn't think was apparent?
Paul Violas and Fran Townsend, thank you both very much tonight. Still ahead on this expanded edition of the CBS Evening News, it was a massacre. Was it terrorism? Plus, answering the call for help in Puerto Rico.
Back now from Las Vegas. Public officials were quick to condemn the slaughter that took place behind me here last night, but they struggled with how to describe it. Here's Jim Axelrod.
It was 6 hours after the shooting when law enforcement, eager to calm the public, ruled out terrorism.
No, not at this point. We believe it's a local individual.
The president condemned the shooting.
It was an act of pure evil.
But he didn't call it terrorism either. As the nation absorbs the worst mass shooting in U.S. history, maybe we need to reconsider the definition. Richard Cohn is with the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Well, the label certainly doesn't matter to the victims or their families. Our hearts go out to all of them. But the label does matter, and it's important that we get it right because it tells us what type of response we as a country need to have in order to address these incidents.
Strictly speaking, there's a narrow legal definition for terrorism: violence designed to intimidate a civilian population or influence the policy of a government, but no actual sentence. So Dylan Roof, who killed 9 African Americans in their church in Charleston, and James Fields, the man accused of running down protesters in Charlottesville in August, were charged with other crimes. Just like James Hodgkinson, the man who targeted Republican congressmen on a softball field in June would have been had he lived. But Las Vegas reminds us widening the definition of terror will introduce a traumatic reality of modern-day life and introduce some clarity to the horror.
If the shooter's last name was Muhammad rather than Paddock, I think too many people would have jumped to an erroneous conclusion and immediately labeled it as a terrorist act.
What we call terrorism doesn't appear to be a question that will be going away. Following Virginia Tech and Orlando, this shooting is the 3rd time in the last decade we've had a story headlined as the deadliest mass shooting in modern American history.
Jim Axelrod, thank you, Jim. And coming up next, progress in Puerto Rico, but not everywhere.
Before President Trump heads to Las Vegas on Wednesday, he'll meet with victims of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. David Begnaud is in San Juan.
In advance of the president's arrival tomorrow, there's evidence that things are happening faster in Puerto Rico than we have seen before in terms of aid getting to where it needs to go. Here at the Coliseum in San Juan, there's 700,000 pounds of food, water. And this is evidence of how private business is partnering with the federal government to make things happen. But while there's progress in the capital, there is still desperation in isolated parts of the island. Take Utuado. There's one grocery store, it is open, but the shelves are bare for water and bread and other essentials. People who haven't had water for a week are now improvising. FEMA has positioned water tankers at every municipality around the island, and at every hospital, there is a National Guard representative to make sure that if the hospital has an urgent need, that need is relayed to the officials in San Juan who are overseeing the emergency operation.
David, thank you. Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Tom Petty was reportedly rushed to a Los Angeles hospital last night. The website TMZ says Petty was found at his home in cardiac arrest and is clinging to life. Petty, who is 66, has sold more than 80 million albums. Just last week, he wrapped up a tour with his band. the Heartbreakers. I'm Jeff Glor. In a moment, we'll go back to Anthony Mason in Las Vegas for an update on the shooting.
Back now from Las Vegas. We're across from the Mandalay Bay here, as you can see, and this street behind us is still closed, as is much of the area around the Mandalay Bay. This tape shows you this is considered a crime scene. There are still people's belongings and clothing scattered on the streets. Street cleaners have been coming through, but people in this town describe it as eerie. Vigils and prayer services are being held here this evening, and the president will come here Wednesday to meet with first responders and families of the shooting victims. He called the massacre an act of pure evil and led the nation in a moment of silence. Flags will be at half-staff through Friday. 59 people were killed and more than 500 hurt in the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. Stephen Paddock fired on an outdoor concert from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. He took his own life before police burst through his door. Paddock was 64 and lived in Mesquite, Nevada. Officials believe he acted alone and had no links to terrorism, but they have not yet discovered a motive. My colleague Norah O'Donnell will be here in Las Vegas tomorrow with the very latest on CBS This Morning. That's our special expanded edition of the CBS Evening News. With Jeff Glor in New York, I'm Anthony Mason in Las Vegas. Our condolences to the victims tonight. Thank you for watching. Good night.